learned two things, among others, but two things stand out in my mind. Number one, it's very contagious. And number two, it's not nearly as lethal as the experts told us it was going to be.
That is Republican Senator John No Relation Kennedy of Louisiana, and he knows exactly what he's doing there. He likes to play up the "I'm just like you" affect, especially when he thinks people in Louisiana are listening. But this man, a former Democrat, has degrees from Vanderbilt, UVA Law School, and studied at Oxford. He knows that the virus has killed one of every 830 people in his state, a death rate way over and above most nations on the planet. In fact, the political veteran and frequent guest of ours, Ron Klain, reminds us more people in Senator Kennedy's state of Louisiana have perished from coronavirus than died fighting in World War II, Korea, Vietnam combined. And as of tonight, more than half the states in our country are now reporting a rise in cases. So, back with us tonight, Michael Osterholm, professor and the director of the Center for Infectious Disease Research and Policy, University of Minnesota. He's also the co-author of the book, Deadliest Enemy, Our War Against Killer Germs. Michael, what are people to do surrounded by deniers in media, whether it's a hyper-educated senator from Louisiana who knows better, or the president, the kind of denier-in-chief whose first official act today was to remove his mask? He is sick with COVID-19.
Well, you're absolutely right. There's a tremendous amount of pushback out there among what I would call no longer just pandemic fatigue, but pandemic anger. People who believe that this is all a hoax, it's not real. Meanwhile, as you just laid out, we're actually going to hit the darkest days of this pandemic to date over the next several months. The case numbers are going up right now. We're getting into that fall season with indoor air being a much more prominent way to transmit the virus. And I would suggest that we are going to see this disease go from the number 3 cause of death in this country back up closer to number 1 as it was in April. That's hardly a disease that's not a problem.
Let me ask you to go deeper on that last point. Some people have asked, why does everyone assume it gets worse in fall and winter? Explain what happens environmentally. You mentioned it by nature forces us inside.
Yes, indoor air doesn't have the same circulation as does outdoor air. The virus dissipates much more quickly outdoor air. While we don't have the data yet, I'll be willing to put dimes to dollars that the transmission that we saw with the Rose Garden ceremony didn't occur in the Rose Garden. It likely occurred in those meetings that were held prior to the ceremony in those smaller rooms in the White House itself, where many of these people who are now infected actually were standing next to each other for some period of time. As I sit here in the studio right now, Brian, with just 10 minutes of my talking, I fill this room full of these aerosols, these small little drops, where if I were outdoors, they would dissipate. So now that we're coming into the fall season, where we're going to spend much more time indoors, we're just going to see the potential for this transmission to go up precipitously.